universities to be the trigger for this regeneration. I also argue that there's something very significant about really coming to Lokoja, because it is the heart of where Nigeria's modern movement of Nigeria into what we call modernity actually moves the sense through the work of people like Ajayi Crowther and so on. So if you feel bored enough, I mean, you can go home at this point. But I'll try to read this, and again, with the rituals, I'll start by saying that returning to Lokoja for me is always a very warm and welcoming embrace. It's important, and indeed, iconic aspects of our national history. So I suffered no hesitation when my good friend and my brother, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Layani Akun, kindly invited me to visit and to consider giving the public lecture. I'd like to therefore thank you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, again for your generosity of spirit, and to express my profound gratitude to the principal officers, the faculty and the students, and the guests who I know you have other pressing priorities that have also offered to share time with us here today. So I am aware of the challenges of building a resilient and enduring educational institution in Nigeria today. Multifaceted contexts range from inadequate funding, poor infrastructure, to frequent disruptions of academic calendar, alongside shortages of qualified staff and the need for new directions in curricula that align with both global standards and local needs. This is not to add the insecurity in many of our country's regions today, which hampers access to education even as political instability and inconsistent policies undermine long-term planning. Indeed, a broader view of these many challenges facing our country requires us to list socioeconomic disparities that limit equitable access, particularly for girls and for our rural citizens, and the rapid digital divide exacerbating inequalities in adoption. The truth is that addressing these issues, ever severe our national problems, address them seriously, it requires sustained and critical conversation on government commitments, private sector collaboration, community engagement, and innovative reforms to ensure quality, accessibility, and relevance in a rapidly evolving world. Sadly, these meaningful discussions are not happening, and when we do, not so often and so thoroughly as they should. For me, this is the aspect of what I want to share with you today, because at the heart of that deliberative process, that conversational process among members of the community about how we govern ourselves well and how we govern our society. This is the province of what we call proper journalism. So a fortnight ago, I was speaking to professional colleagues, academic students at the Ajayi Crowther University in Oyo, and I drew attention to the symbolic essence of the figure of the late Ajayi Crowther. It is the same feeling I have coming to Lokoja today, a town that carries the weight of an extraordinary history and which remains unacknowledged sufficiently as the battle of Nigeria's modern journey. In saying this, I extract the central value of meaning in the life of Crowder, as a homage to the memory of a man who laid the foundation of literacy in some key Nigerian languages like Yoruba, Igbo, and Nupe through his works in linguistics and translations, as well as his many endeavors in educational development. Crowder's efforts in education, including the founding between 1860 and 1865, the first primary school in northern Nigeria, which was initially called the Nursery of the Infants Church, and later rechristened Holy Trinity School here in Lokoja, that promoted what you would call a harmonious blend of indigenous identity for us as Nigerians and whatever influence this country was going to have globally. Now, the Holy Trinity School here in Lokoja, as well as the complementary partnership in 1866 with Captain Davis to establish what they call the Academy, they became the signal of what at best we can summarize as social and cultural promotion in the service of public enlightenment. Now, these two institutions, this primary school here in Lokoja of 1860 to 65 and the Academy in Lagos 1866, I say that to my mind they help lay the foundation for the libertarian ideals that defined the vibrant 19th century press, and it fuels the nationalist power of many of our compatriots and founding fathers of our nation, including Ajay Crowder's own grandson, Abat Macaulay, the leading voice in Nigeria's anti-colonial struggle and journalism. On the authority of Professor Ajay, one of our greatest historians, we understand that the establishment of the Holy Trinity School in Lokoja had a profound and lasting impact on formal education in the northern region, inspiring the creation of additional schools by both missionaries and local communities. The school produced educated individuals who went on to play important roles in their communities as teachers, leaders, and advocates for social change. Moreover, the school contributed to the promotion of literacy and awareness about social issues, including health and governance. Crowder's approach emphasized the importance of an educated populace in achieving development, and the graduates of the Holy Trinity School were instrumental in fostering a new generation of leaders who would articulate local concerns and engage with broader societal issues. At this point, let me plug in a quick appeal to the history and mass communication departments of the school, as well as other associated departments, to consider a collaborative research work on the heritage of Crowder and how his legacy in fostering the foundation of the Nigerian public sphere affected the march of journalism and of the modern moment in our story of being and becoming as a nation. As it would say, if you seek to partner in the practice end of journalism, we will be happy to be co-travelers. So then, what is the role of the media in a democracy? Democracy at its heart is a system of governance where power emanates from the people. That's what everybody knows. Its foundational principles include participation, accountability, transparency, and representation. Citizens are expected not just to vote, but to actively engage with issues, scrutinize decisions, and demand accountability from their leaders. Historically, the media has been recognized as the fourth estate of democracy, a watchdog over power, a platform for public discourse, and a bridge between government and the citizens. From the revolutionary pamphlets of Thomas Paine in the 18th century to radio and television during the decolonization in Africa, to today's digital platforms, the media have shaped how societies understand themselves, fellow citizens, institutions, and their leaders. But what is the philosophical basis of this role? And what happens when the media is rooted not in distant capitals, but in local communities? A famous American philosopher, Walter Lippmann, in his influential book called Public Opinion, expressed skepticism about the public's ability to govern wisely in complex modern societies. He saw the world as too vast and technical for ordinary citizens to grasp, and thus he argued the role of the media was to distill information from manageable narratives and help the public make decisions, essentially enabling representative democracy by simplifying complexity. Against this thought is another gentleman, John Dewey, and most of those who are in education will know the works of John Dewey. In his work on the public and its problems, he disagrees with Lippmann, believing deeply in the capacity of ordinary citizens to deliberate and shape their own destinies, provided they have access to good information and opportunities to engage in dialogue. Dewey argued that democracy is not just a form of government, but a way of living together in a mode of associated living. Local media, in Dewey's sense, creates the spaces where the associative life can flourish. Schools, town halls, local newspaper, radio programs became arena for democratic learning and engagement. Now, building on these debates, these two thinkers, I brought in the thought a German philosopher here, Habermas. He developed the concept of what's called the public sphere. In this arena, private citizens come together to discuss matters of public concern. They form public opinion that influences political action. And for Habermas, the media play a central role in all this process, facilitating rational, critical debate among citizens. Now, local media in particular aligns with his vision because it is embedded in the everyday life of citizens and often more accessible than elite national platforms. Therefore, we can see local media not just as a provider of information, but as an enabler of deliberative democracy, helping to transform isolated individuals into an engaged public. Now, the theoretical insights of these three philosophers and thinkers, they resonate very powerfully in the Nigerian experience, where local media have been a very vital site for democratic struggle and public debate. During the colonial era, local newspapers such as the Lagos Weekly Record, 1891, the West African Pilot, founded by the first president of Nigeria in 1997, and the Daily Times of Lagos, 1926, they became platforms for anti-colonial nationalism. These papers provided information about colonial abuses, published opinion polling, for self-determination and mobilize ordinary Nigerians into an informed and engaged public. This is a classic example of both Dewey and Adams would call the creation of the public sphere. At the time, local papers also gave voice to different ethnic and regional perspectives. In Ibadan, Kaduna, a smaller presence published in Yoruba and Hausa helped local communities articulate their concerns about both colonial grievances and colonial governance. And during the decade of military dictatorship in Nigeria, 66 to 99, local media again served as the arena of democratic resistance. Newspapers like The Guardian, based in Lagos, with strong regional bureaus, and numerous titles, particularly the Concord newspaper, which was published by, the gentleman, M.O. Abiola, who then won the 1993 election, which was annulled, and who really pioneered what we call community newspapering in a very articulate sense. That, for every region, a community paper, which he called community commons. Amana in the north, which of course means unity, the same thing. Doka in the east, Ishofon in the southwest area. This was an attempt to really bring media to the life and particular meaning of the people of local constituency. Since the return of civil rule in 1999, local media in Nigeria has expanded, especially with the liberalization of broadcast. Dozens of community radio stations have emerged, such as Freedom Radio in Kano to Splash FM in Ibadan, providing programming in indigenous languages, covering global elections and enabling citizens to debate local issues, governance issues. Digital platforms have also emanated, like local blogs and Facebook groups that report on municipal matters and hold local leaders accountable in one way or the other. In Nigeria, conversations about the democratic state cannot be complete without the efforts of media and civil society in holding the government to account. Importantly, as it was viewed as a key to promoting legitimacy, changing cultures of exclusion, and ensuring better decision making. Such goals were unattainable, presumably, under the military regime. That the press, radio, television, and other agencies of the mass media shall, at all times, be free to uphold the fundamental objectives contained in this chapter and uphold the responsibility and accountability of government to the people. Really, this is the legal foundation. Legal basis of what we do in journalism. We have almost word for word this little paragraph inserted into their constitution. It's the same in Ghana, the Ghanaian constitution, the 165, and is almost word for word. An ambition by the three philosophers and thinkers that we spoke about earlier. In practice, the Constitution provides both a shield and also a sword for local journalists, empowering them to interrogate power while also requiring constant vigilance to defend those rights against encroachment. So why then do we see local media matter? So what about the small town radio station in Luzon, the community newspaper in Abeokuta, or indeed the still large local newspaper here in Lokoja Graphic? Local media operates closest to the people. Its journalists live among their audience. They certain old disputes that national newspapers or media rarely notice. So scholars like Kevin Howley define community media in that sense as a media produced that is managed and owned by a community to serve that community. He also argues that local or community media empowers marginalized groups, they foster civic participation, and provide alternatives to dominant media narratives. Now, this proximity and embeddedness make local media uniquely suited to foster what we always aspire, which is civic engagement at the grassroots level. This is what Dewey had called the creation of a public, and what Habermas has termed the public sphere. From the nationalist press of the colonial era to the defiant papers during the military era and to these communities, radio stations and blogs, local media in Nigeria have consistently sustained a democratic culture. It does so by informing, enabling deliberation, challenging power, and representing marginalized voices. In a society where the distance between government and the government often seems vast, local media bridge that gap, turning private concerns into public issues and transforming passive subjects into active citizens. Now, the democratic dividends of local media will therefore include: one is we have to create an informed citizenry. Anywhere you have a thriving local media, the citizens seem to be totally informed. For example, in Jos, the Nigerian Standard, a state-owned local newspaper, reported on the dangers posed by illegal mining operations in Jos and Plateau State long before national media took notice. As a result of sustained local coverage, government agencies intervened to regulate operations. The second thing that local media can bring to us is that they help to set and frame agenda. Local media help to determine what issues the public and policy makers view as priorities. By shining spotlight on neglected issues, such as a leaking dam or a collapsed bridge, or rather the very sorry state of the road from Abuja to Lokoja, which is really only now from that connects the federal capital to the southern parts of the country. I want to bring a few examples of what a thoughtful and well-functioning local media can do. There's a story of the herbal mixture called the Baba Aisha herbal mix. The local newspaper, for instance, uncovered the dangers of unregulated herbal products sold across Nigeria. The story not only garnered 5 million views online, but it also forced NAFDAC into a swift intervention to arrest perpetrators in nationwide mop-up of the harmful products and significant progress in public health oversight. Another issue I'd just like to bring up is, I think this happened last year, it became such a very big issue when it was a foreign policy debate here in Nigeria. It was called the Samoa Agreement. Now, the Samoa Agreement is a framework around which developing countries get grant support and development support from the European Union. And that became such a very toxic and stuff for spreads disinformation. But the policy brief informs, it helps to clarify this, raising diplomatic engagement, reshaping public discourse, and then add recognition from several embassies. Similarly, we've seen work around post-harvest investigations, the incessant and perennial flooding that affects about 19 states of our country, illegal mining, which has become now a big epidemic in the country, not to talk of the case of the terrorists, the rampant kidnapping going on, giving a big security challenge in the country. This is how a good local media can help set an agenda, help raise the priorities to let the government know that these are the things affecting people and people are feeling it. Number three is that local media can also help to effective gatekeeping. And in a world project with information, local media perform the crucial role of gatekeeping. They filter, they help prioritize what is newsworthy for the community. A fourth consideration, and this for me is in fact one of the most important, is community engagement. Every media that we use, we're always hoping to achieve engagement. How will the people, citizens, the public, obtain the kind of information that we are providing? Local media provide a platform for dialogue and for civic participation. This can come through calling, radio, program, SMS-based polls, or letters to the editor in local newspapers, citizens, voice, debates, and so on and so forth. Then it also, like every kind of media, but now at a very granular level, at a very deeper community level, what is most missing and most prized in every democracy is accountability. As the most visible contribution of local media to democracy is the role of a watchdog over power at the grassroots level. Investigative reporting at the local level can help, as they do, expose corruption, mismanagement, and policy failures. I'd like to draw attention to what was called the open NAS, which my newspaper worked on since our return to democracy in 1999 and until the last days of the 7th Assembly. Nobody ever knew the National Assembly budget. Nobody knew what they were budgeting. So it took the work of a very concerted for 2 years to be able to report on the National Assembly for them to review what now has become so commonplace as their budgets. Representation. At the heart of every democracy is the whole question of representation. National media often marginalize rural peoples, minorities, and disadvantaged communities, like communities of disability and so on. But local media can help give and amplify their voices. Stories about underrepresented groups influence policy and challenge stereotypes. In Nigeria, the Guardian regional pages regularly feature stories about small fishing villages in Bayelsa, of farmers in Benue helping to bring their grievances to public attention. And in one powerful example, a small community newspaper here in Nigeria persistently drew attention to the decrepit condition of primary schools in local government areas. After months of publishing photographs and testimonies, parents and teachers, grievances of parents and teachers, the local a clear instance of media enabling democratic representation. I think the simple point here is that national media, international media are too engaged in issues above the heads of their local people really live. If we really want democracy to have life, we have to understand how to put media now at the local level and give it. So that's the foundation. Now, but there are challenges. So it's not enough to tell us about great things that local media can do. There are challenges, and these challenges are very evident. Why local media play a vital role in fostering democracy? Their capacity to perform this role is increasingly under threat. A combination of economic, technological, political, and institutional challenges have created a hostile environment for local journalism, threatening its viability and eroding its ability to inform and the need to hold power to account. Just one simple, when I was leaving the university, if you wanted to be a journalist, your dream would be to work in the Lagos Daily Times. At that time, the Daily Times was publishing about 1 million copies a day on Sunday, about 750 on daily. I had the honor of also working in what you might call a local newspaper in Herald, in Ilorin. And on a very good market day, the Herald will publish 450,000 copies. If I put a little vote here and ask you what you think our national papers are circulating, how many papers they print and selling on a daily basis, the results I'm sure will be so striking. I'll summarize this way, that no newspaper in Nigeria today is publishing anything close to 50,000 copies a day. None whatsoever. Some of the most famous newspapers are doing no more than 15,000 to 20,000 copies. I don't want to name their names. One of the very interesting, I'm doing some research and I had to talk to some of my colleagues in Lagos and I asked, what's your calculation? Most of them told me between 250 to 350,000 copies. But because I work in many of these organizations, I just walked straight to the printing press and met the press manager and asked, how many copies are you guys printing on a daily basis? And they told me it's between 10 and 15,000 copies. So everybody is living a terrible life, and that is part of the whole crisis of the media that it cannot engage. But I said there are problems. Now this is where I would want us to have a very honest conversation with ourselves. Now I say that all these problems, whatever way you look at it, is based on a particular issue, which often is not well discussed in the media, and thankfully also not within our academic environment. Not saying that the media is failing, and really it is failing. The key reason for this is that for the first time, in probably about 200-year history, both of the media, particular media, obviously of local media, of the whole ecosystem that produces the media and supports it. There's much more than we say that media must serve democracy. These three moments, local media, media ecosystem, and democracy, they have come together, and the three of them are undergoing what you might call a conjectural crisis, a crisis of highest proportion. Sometimes we may say the society is okay, but the media is not. Then you can make some amends. never have we come so soon or in any recent year where these three levels are undergoing a fundamental, almost existential crisis. So this is where we really need minds, and that's one of the biggest motivations for me to come. But I have to talk to my friends in the university. This is the industry where people know your vocation there is to think about the problems of our society. And I'm saying that at the time when democracy is undergoing a crisis, and Mr. Bassett, you have alluded to that very brilliantly in your address, the media is undergoing its own crisis, and the broad ecosystem that supports the media is also undergoing a crisis. This is once in a generation kind of crisis, and when this happens, people in social science generally say that you are moving what historical conjuncture. So it is around this conjuncture that I really want us to focus a little bit. I'm skipping all the very good German theories that will be wrapping up through. And I'm saying that, when you have problems of a historical conjuncture and the way that I've tried to announce it, where the platform, the environment of the platform, and the broad society, in this case, the democracy building process, are in the serious crisis, we really have to slow down and then rethink what we are doing. So the graphic newspaper here in Lokoja used to publish when it started being now, I think it publishes once a week. It is possible that managers of that process and the state government that supports it as a patron or as a publisher think that the problem is to inject and put more money and so on. And I'm saying, well, we need to put more money, but that is not the problem. So we are then with the problem. So part of it, I don't want to run away from the fact that there's a fundamental funding problem in the media. So I don't want to run away from that. Yeah, the media really needs resources, it needs revenue. But something happened in this country in 1995. This country came into what we call a new phase in the history of its being. We made a transition to what we call a digital era. The emergence of a digital society means, in essence, that every way that we have thought about not only media work, even academic work, accounting, military science, and everything, on obviously security, under the concern of a digital mechanism, things have changed the whole way. For us in media, we could say we do three key things. We collect news, we process it, we distribute it, and then we think about how to finance the operation of that. All these three processes in the digital area have changed, and I think that this change became noticeable and became significant in the year 1995. So, funding and revenue issues will be serious. Legal issue, the brother who welcomed me here spoke about my encounter with General Fulatai. Obviously, very true. We had written the story that General Fulatai was busy building houses in Dubai. Obviously, we all dismissed, and he was upset about that. So not him, he made the police commissioner in Abuja to then come pick me up, and then everybody, I think, well, very quickly he was a thoughtful man, I hope, and he saw that that was not the wise thing to do, and we decided to meet in his office the next day. And when he started getting angry, and I said, well, first let me say, I'm a soldier's son, I grew up with the band, so I'm just a part of this whole family. So we're not doing this against as a class, but if you're a leader, you know, that section of the Constitution directly says you have to really hold your leaders to account. So that's what we're doing. But you see, that arbitrariness, it happens always. You know, and today in this country, some of the laws that make it impossible to do good journalism, there are 28 laws still in our books. And these are things that we have to consider. So, I'm not minimizing the issue of funding the media, of very, very bad and anachronistic laws that are still in the books. Indeed, I think this is very important because we drew attention of the National Assembly to this very recently. And we said that, look, over the 25 years now since Nigeria's fourth republic was formed, journalists in Nigeria have continued to face attacks. And according to the data from the Press Attack Tracker, there's a platform called the Press Attack Tracker. Our Center for Journalism Innovation and Development, which is a very robust and reliable database on press freedom violations. 179 journalists suffered physical attacks, unlawful arrests, and other violations in Nigeria during the first 5 years of this country's fourth republic. That's 2000 to 2006. A period when violations ought to be receded. Furthermore, of the 1,237 verified cases of violation against the press between 1986 and 2025, the past 5 years have been some of the most scandalous, even by African records. I would encourage particularly students and faculty to check out, because if we talk about doing good journalism, we also talk about the freedom to be able to do it. And that's why press freedom is always a major issue, and UNESCO dedicates a day to the observance of press freedom. So I encourage those who are in the whole enterprise of journalism, either as student or faculty, to check for data and look at what the Press Attack Tracker offers. I say this because Kogi State actually features in a very dramatic way in the Press Attack, and this is very, very valuable. It's a very objective marker of it, because you'll be surprised that Kogi State is promoted generally as one of the states that is, most friendly to journalists. Both the previous government and the current government have been rewarded by media organizations and so on and so forth. And it is our duty to correlate this discordance, this asymmetric logic between the state of the state itself and the presumably nice press that it appears to be getting. So there's a whole question also of media capture. One of the problems in media is co-optation. Many of the states, you find that state governments pay journalists, to cover the city between their salaries and pay very handsome stipends and so on and so forth. And I'm not trying to be self-righteous here or sanctimonious. I understand that if you don't pay as publishers, if you don't pay your reporters, you are saying that somebody should pay them. And this is in essence why a lot of the corruption that is in the media today is very much so. So there are also regulatory challenges. The NBC, Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, is not only one of the most media unfriendly regulators. And it goes on and on and on. These are the challenges. So we've spoken a little bit about the opportunities and prospects of a good media, but we're also looking to say that there are problems, there are challenges. Now, what are the strategies that we can bring now? So instead of meditating, worrying too much, let us think of how we can improve the situation. So for me, the very first thing I propose is that we should go back and understand what it means to be in a digital moment. When the human society was in an agrarian, historians understand this very well. When we were in an agrarian phase, we could not impose the logic of an industrial phase. The Industrial Revolution helped to advance society beyond the limits of an agrarian society. But what has happened today is that the human society has moved fundamentally into a new digital space. So if we want to solve the problem of the media, let us first understand that a new era is already in place. And when you have a new era in history, it's not as if the old era will close shop. You still see the traces of the old and the past cohabiting. Sometimes very uncomfortably, sometimes very agreeably. But what is important is to know that a new phase in history has emerged. And if you want to solve the problem, you can use the logic and principles of the past to solve the problem of the present. So, I say let's first understand that we are in a new era, and that era is digital era, and it has its own logic completely. So what we then call mass communication, perhaps is really, it needs a redefinition for the present era. So just to be very clear, I'll read this little passage. So one of the major thinkers in media, Manuel Castel, calls this new era or this new practice mass self-communication rather than mass communication. And I say that it accurately defines our digital age. It highlights the revolutionary shift in how information is created and how it is disseminated. This dynamic process empowers individuals and groups to leverage the internet and social media platforms by passing traditional media gatekeepers to share content with an unprecedented global reach. It brilliantly melds the extensive scope of mass communication with deeply personal and grassroots autonomy of individual expression, thereby dismantling conventional structures through its inherently decentralized nature. It is fueled by the Web 2.0 technologies, which champion user participation and network communication. And this paradigm allows anyone to produce and disseminate content that can resonate across the globe, fostering vibrant, a two-way interaction previously unimaginable. From a single compelling post to a viral video, mass self-communication fundamentally redefines the pathway for marginalized voices to connect and reverberate worldwide. It is rapidly transforming the landscape of public expression. So in concrete terms, by the year early 2000, and I spoke earlier that I think the precise date is 1995, Nigeria went through a profound digital transformation, reshaping its media ecosystem and altering how information is produced, how it is distributed, and how it is consumed. The rapid proliferation of mobile technology has been a key driver of this transformation. Mobile phone penetration has grown exponentially, enabling even low-income and rural communities to access communication networks. Concurrently, widespread availability of relatively affordable smartphones has facilitated internet access across diverse demographic and geographical segments. So, how can we therefore, understanding this new context, how can we now support a community media model? I said earlier that no Nigerian newspaper is publishing anything up to 20. But guess how many Nigerians access their news on Facebook on a daily basis? 70 million. So in fact, when people worry so much, especially policymakers and officials, that the media is failing, the big Nigerian newsroom is not guided or used or Arise TV, it's on Facebook or social media. Because indeed, that is where most of the news that people consume will be obtained. And technology companies also have evacuated all the resources that media needs and uses in the past. So, we raise very quickly now towards the end zone. And I'm arguing that what we need to do actionable pathways that incorporate lessons from practice and imagine opportunities in this new era of AI and knowledge economy. Number one, I think community support models have now become an imperative both for government and also I think universities like this can help promote those needs because policymakers of course have to listen to what academics are saying. Hopefully we are listening. Sustainable local journalism begins with communities recognizing its value and investing in it. Communities can support journalism through subscriptions, donations, cooperative ownership, or crowdfunding. This model not only generates revenue but also strengthens the bond between the media and its audience, fostering accountability on both sides. Policy interventions. Public policy plays a crucial role in creating an enabling environment. Governments can offer tax incentives, grants, and targeted subsidies to local media without compromising editorial independence. This is done in a whole lot of European societies today. It never used to be the case, but as their own democracy is also suffering, we are saying that you should invest more, and governments are leading that charge. Technological adaptation and licensing in the age of generative AI. Local media must adopt and utilize technological tools to survive and thrive in a digital-first world. This includes developing mobile-friendly websites, creating podcasts, and utilizing WhatsApp newsletters, as well as using social media strategically to reach and engage broader audience. can also help share resources, improve reporting quality, and widen impact. For example, local media can partner with national outlets to publish joint investigation or collaborate with civic technology organizations to visualize data-driven stories. International networks such as the Collaborative Journalism Network and the African Investigative Journalism Conference in South Africa already fosters such partnership. The role of universities and journalists training. Universities play a unique and crucial role in enhancing the quality and sustainability of local journalism. One, they can develop rigorous curricula and equip students with the skills necessary for reporting, ethics, and digital media. They can offer continuing education and certification programs for working journalists. And they can also serve as research and innovation hub, where new business models, storytelling formats, and technology can be tested. In Nigeria, the Center for Journalism Innovation and Development has pioneered a campus reporter program which identifies, trains, and mentors student journalists across Nigerian universities with standard before schools today. I think there are about 95 universities that are enrolled in that program, and it has transnationalized to Ghana. It is also in Nigeria today, and the Sierra Leonean chapter is to be inaugurated soon. This model, which combines capacity building, mentorship, and publication platform, can be replicated widely to inject fresh talent and energy into local media ecosystem. Media literacy programs are also very critical, equipping audiences to discern credible reporting from misinformation is as important as journalism training. Media literacy initiatives can empower communities to critically engage with news, demand better from their media, and resist manipulative narrative. I think this is one of the most important things to demand from our media today and to demand from our society. I'll give you 2 or 3 quick examples. How many people followed the news recently that there was a coup in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire? It was all around social media. But the truth was that nothing happened in Cote d'Ivoire. It is one of the most defined challenges that we will face as this country proceeds. We saw how it came from NSAS. One of the very humbling moments for me was when I was in a meeting with the planning minister recently, and he was very upset about media, and he said during NSAS, they were recording 1 million troops. 1 million troops were flooding into Nigeria, and the government was very confused. The government didn't know what to do. And he said, what's that? And when there's a rain out, we think that heaven is going to fall. So, according to him, they had to approach the Israeli security services that helped them, and they found out that those tweets were not even generated from Nigeria. They were coming from Estonia. Estonia is a region in the old Soviet Union near Russia. This is to say that in the new world that we are in, the power of this information is one of the greatest threats. Security people understand this better than we do. And one of the antidotes, one of the ways to address it, of course, is through media literacy. So media literacy has a marginal curriculum. Part of it is what we call fact-checking, but fact-checking is just not enough. We have to do more rigorous media literacy, and this is not only for citizens, for government, it's for every institution. I personally wake up very, very afraid of how election will hold in Nigeria in 2027. Because at the advent of AI, anybody here can generate his own election results. You can generate the trace of the INEC chairman reading that result. You can generate his voice or her voice, depending on who Senator Yakubu is living in 1 to 2, whoever is put here. That is going to be a fundamental challenge, not only for we as citizens, for the democracy we're trying to be, but definitely even for those who are security keepers of our country. Because this is not small game, this is really high game. Unfortunately, what colloquially, which is a bad term to use, but a man like them at home has popularized what they call fake news, has become a big industry. It's a lot of money that, so it's not just a practice, it's really an industry. So, one of the recommendations here is media literacy, which I think schools and universities should encourage and put in curriculum of journalism, and obviously other institutions must also encourage. So, my closing notes. I said that reviving local media in Nigeria also requires innovative thinking, cross-sectoral collaboration, and societal commitment. Licensing opportunities in the age of AI, university-led training pipelines, community banks funding models, and policy support all offer pathways for the way forward. By investing in these strategies, we can ensure that local media continues to inform citizens, to amplify the voices of the marginalized, and hold power to account, thereby sustaining the democratic culture at its very base. Now, this is the afterword. I'm saying that practical steps for Nigeria are investing in university media partnership to improve journalism training and research, reforming policies to lower license barriers and protect press freedom, supporting civic initiatives like the press attack trackers to monitor and resist intimidation, funding innovative community-based and digital-first journalism projects, encouraging licensing agreements between technology companies and governments and media organizations and so on and so on things as big as revenue share. Why will Facebook come and scrape all the content here, meaning that in vacuum all your revenue, you have to set up a conversation as some countries are doing, where how they pay back into some kind of fund to support local media. So my afterword is that survival of local media is essential for a vibrant participatory democracy. And as Jill would remind us, democracy is made real through our daily interactions. And local journalism is the mirror and amplifier of those interactions. Lippmann warns that democracy cannot function without trustworthy, skilled interpreters of public life. And Marx would argue that democracy withers where the public sphere is silent and distorted. And I say that we cannot and must not let local journalism wither. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends, I say let's work together as citizens, as journalists, as educators, and as leaders to ensure that local journalists continue to shine light into the corners where democracy lives in our county, in our villages, and in our neighborhood. Again, I'd like to thank you. I really thank the
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the lecture has been delivered, and I think well delivered. So we can give another round. Ms. Vice Chancellor, I'd like to crave your indulgence to open the floor for comments, observations, questions, and we would advise comments, observations, questions should be as brief as possible and avoid repetition. In any case, as you identify and come forward, you will introduce yourself and tell us where you work and who you are, and then ask your brief questions or you may observe. Vice Chancellor, County Commission, I would like to yield the floor. Yes, I would want to identify you, and Professor Ejandoni, Professor of Political Science. Please come forward.
My Vice Chancellor, sir, and the guest speaker. All other protocols duly observed. The speaker today met me in Nigeria in 1984. Bruce Loring was my general manager. And I think very much that anytime I see people offices live, I'm always impressed for somebody maintaining his integrity and ability and capacity up to date. I'm impressed, guys. You did well there. Now, my comment. We have problem in Nigeria. Problem of succession in all spheres of life. In academics, in journalism, in business, in governance. That's a fundamental problem. I think in our meeting with the faculty members, I mentioned something that I'm always a little bit to the left. And that is the reason why I was in LDP. We weathered the national program of Lokoja. And I always ask people that for we to develop the society, we must be different. Fundamentally, what we have in the university is that people are terrible conformists. We are conformists. So that anywhere you are, as a journalist, as a teacher, as a businessman, think differently. That is the essence of life. That is why God gives us brain. But what we have in the universe today, especially in Nigeria, is we have so many conformists. And this conformism is the major problem we have in Nigeria. So that people think all the time of how a system will survive, even if that system is bad. And it's so bad. But I'm very happy that we still have a generation of people who are thinking in the way of our Vice Chancellor, the way of Dapo. I think it's my own prayer that God, in His infinite mercy, will help us so that this crop of thinking, this system will continue. That is how a society can just develop. Otherwise, we remain backward forever. My last comment is this. I'm very happy that we have the type of Vice Chancellor as well. He has brought in people here from different spheres of life who have enlightened us and we still continue to enlighten us. I think the young people that are here today, please learn from this and just think differently so that society will develop. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Ali. I want to say that you talk about Lokoja, and I have to understand that primary established, right? 100 years after, I want to student that place by 101 years after, and I'm happy that you think connects to that place. I want to also say quickly, I have a question and a comment. The first comment I want to make is, can you, for the question, can you share with us quickly 2-3 minutes your experience while you are exiled? Because yes, I want to know, because a lot of people are exiled and then immigrating and coming back their country. You were still very patriotic. Why you just share with us 2 minutes. My question is this: the issue of democracy being sustained by media, being able to inform, engage, and hold them accountable. Today, I see local media, for me, are self-serving, partisan, and money-seeking. What we see today at our local media is celebrating awards. This day award, Concord award, this award, all of award in order to gather money or collect one recognition from them. I want you to dissect that. Our local media in the forefront of informing, engaging, and holding government accountable. And on the last one, we talk about celebrating our political leaders, whereas on ground you can't see anything. The best governor in this, in that, you can't see. So how do we make that nexus between our local media being able to reform and to make accountable and celebrate, and of course your experience as an exile? God bless you.
I thought I saw Professor Belagi's hand up. Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Distinguished guest speaker, the Vice Chancellor of this prestigious university, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Colonel Francis Mafia, Commanding Officer 126 Battalion. I have a couple of questions for you, sir. So since local media operates closest to the people following your lectures, do you see local media playing a bigger role in Nigeria's 2027 elections? If yes, what changes are needed for that to happen? Secondly, sir, it was mentioned when you were being introduced that you are a senior advocate of marginalized Nigerian citizens. How well does local media represent marginalized groups like women, rural communities, and ethnic minorities in Nigerian democracy? Finally, sir, do you think citizen journalism strengthens or weakens the role of traditional local media in democratic processes?
Chancellor, the distinguished lecturer, my colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. The first question I have for the guest lecturer is, you talk about local media in the making of a democratic culture. But we know that most times rural and local income populations are often excluded from mainstream media narratives. How do you think we can bridge that gap to make democracy more inclusive? The next question is, that I have for you is, we all know that Nigerian democratic culture faces a lot of challenges, like electoral corruption, and so on and so forth, vote rigging, and so on and so forth. Even though from your lecture, we know that there has been a lot of improvement. But then, what still needs to be done to strengthen the culture in Nigeria? We would like you to please give us, put more light on that. This one is a personal question to you. You've led investigative reporting in challenging conditions. How have you been able to expose corruption without compromising your safety all these years? You've also faced government harassment for your work. How do you still stay committed to the press freedom in the country where journalists often work under pressure and threats? Then lastly, you have said that the key elements of journalism, we have already know that you have to be accurate, objectivity, and so on and so forth. Will you say you have been able to adhere to these principles as a journalist? Are there times you were pressured to distort information? And what do you do? Thank you, sir.
I'd like to thank all the questioners. Exile, I did not go to exile prepared. So, some people want to go abroad, so you prepare, you know what you're going to do, you want to stay abroad. And that was not my own experience. So I just found myself a little bit of what Vice Chancellor said. I was home. At that time, they had come to arrest. Well, he's a big man now. That boy who was a few months old when they came and arrested the mother. So it was not planned. So you just left home. You left home and you don't know, and then you're under pressure. I guess for me, exile was like, first day I was in exile, I knew that I had to come back home. So I wasn't planning to live, abroad. So most of my 13 years was really working. I hope it is safe to say that really making sure to undermine the Abacha government, which happened ultimately, and help to restore democracy back in Nigeria. So that was all my job, and when all that was complete, I was back home. I was working when I was doing some work when the Bible showed up in the US, and I was running around, and I saw him and said, okay. I was doing some democracy promotion work and he came and then said, so he was briefing at the U.S. African Committee of the U.S. Congress. Everybody, big Nigerian shows up, we go and support them. So that's how we all went. Everybody who was known by very full of energy was talking. And during break time, I went to thank him. Bear in mind, this is a very funny irony. When he came for me, for this guy and his mom, it was no value as a policeman and a former police chief. What was that guy's name now? What's his name? Was I chief? Forgot his name. So they were the ones who orchestrated the whole. It's a good story. So it's not like we're not angry with people. So that's not the problem for me. So anyway, he came and but now he was doing good work for the country, right? Anti-corruption. So during break time, I went to him and I said, okay, look, this is the US Congress. People who write like 200 PhDs on this institution here. So if you want anything back, not just to come and do show voting, you have to tailor your request, their specific committees, make sure that you address those things, blah, blah, blah. So we did a little, and then when the session resumed, he delivered on mission anyway. And so he got a lot of support from the US Congress going back home. I guess he was happy about that. And it's not him alone. And most people, when they come to the US and I go for hearings or something, the first thing is, you have to come back to Nigeria, you have to come back. But this is a very funny irony because we're also hearing. So, everybody kept coming and kept calling backwards. I don't think most of them were serious. So I had plans to come back and do more serious media work. But we kept calling. And then one evening we were watching the TV, I remember. And he had done this program on, what was it called? 419 people. There was a lot of 419 then. So, he was very famous doing that. And he asked me, that's him, that is that not the guy you said you met? And I said, yes. I said, and he's asking you to come back to Nigeria. I said, yes. But he said, so what are you doing now that you must go back home? So I didn't tell him anything. So the next day, I went to work and I called. I said, if you're serious, I'm happy. That was in April. I said, I'm doing some, I don't want to take people's money to do some work I'm not completing. I said, I'll finish this project I'm doing by July. If you want me, I'll be happy to come home. And that's how I came back home. So exile was good, but exile is the worst thing that can happen to anyone. It destroys you completely. What was the second question? Local media. Local media is important. We must do it, but it's not doing the work. I agree. Even the national media is good. But the problems are so severe, and that's the point I'm making, that let us not look at their current weakness. Let's look at the value it can bring and see how we can work to make it function to solve the problems. If we want serious democracy, or at least a modicum of democracy, if we want some sense of development and accountability, I don't know, I'm sure you know, forgive me to say, but look, so I came back to Nigeria and I worked in EFCC for how many years? We don't even know the kinds of things. People who are like speakers of parliament will come, they were writing vouchers with pencils. and they were vacuuming media, all this stuff. So we will just be validating and repeating anger, and that's, we don't have the time. The world is not waiting. So I'm just saying, look, one mechanism, one tool that can do some little work. Because when it works well, it does function well. It's local media. So let's find how either through community media and this. Of course, we need universities like this to help with training. We need to design new revenue and funding models for them to survive, and so on and so forth. But Mr. Lang, I totally share your view. I'm not a great fan of all these silly awards that just supports nothing, the hypocrisy of just supporting all sorts of parties. It means nothing. It's just, it debases the country further, because we can't see the value. How can Lokoja, Abuja kind of nonsense that it is? It's just unthinkable. But that's not to talk of. The other day I saw the school of, I think the school of nursing in the paper in Kwara, and it's like a big style. It's a government school. So, but it's not enough to keep getting angry. Let's just find a way to make this work. However little we can do to make that work, that works. Local media in 2027 will depend on what we do. We can build it, we can, and very transformative. All the things that good local media can do, it can do if we commit to making it happen. But otherwise, we'll go back here again and again and again, and we'll be validating about these things. So it is the kind of commitment we show, and how we think that will be. So I think that, local media is only aspirationally, the way we're talking about it today, able to mediate and amplify local voices and transform them to power, but it's not necessarily going to do so. So it's not a very deterministic process. We really have to, commit to make that work, if that will work. The question you raised about SAP, and I appreciate your question very well. Yeah, you have a string of questions, but one that touches me, I guess I brushed to this last two questions, is the question, so what does journalism mean? Simply, it is a commitment to facts and accuracy. If you're not doing truthful reporting, that's not journalism. Okay? If you're not accurate about your claims, that's not journalism. Indeed, the only difference between journalistic writing and other forms of writing, nobody comes and blames you for fictionalizing, no, or any of the fiction writers who have, because they've never committed that they were journalists. So you can create fictive realities, okay, you can even talk of fictional forms of truth. But if we are talking of truth as a fundamental basis of writing, the only enterprise that calls you to do that is journalism. And perhaps something to add is the fact that every claim you make in journalism must be verifiable. If you cannot verify, people say, sir, you were here in this hall in the report. You must be able to show by evidence that you are here. Verification indeed, that's why some people define that if you just want one simple short definition of journalism, you can call it an enterprise of verification. So, citizen journalism just means that the professional is not doing it. So the key word here is still journalism. You can do social journalism, that is you're using different platforms, which are social platforms. You can do investigative journalism, that is you're going beyond, you're going deeper than can do solutions journalism. We are not benefiting about it. We are raising prospects and solutions and alternatives. So if you do citizen journalism, you must still do journalism. You cannot be lying about what you're saying. So that's fundamental principle of journalism must be present, meaning truth and accuracy, meaning verifiable claims. And hopefully you are very independent. You're not like the public relations officer or some senator or some governor or some kind of, yeah. I'm sorry if it doesn't quite reach the depth, but that's how I would say. So how do you bring local citizens into, it's a big challenge, but language, a lot of this is being done in other parts of the world. But let us not be too abstract about what we will call local journalism. Let's say that if we can create the context where we create a mechanism either through radio or even if it is digital platform, but if it is able to commit to serve as the voice of the people at the local level, ventilate their fears, but also advocate on their behalf, for things that are not working. See pensioners, how many pensioners go to their who don't be shocked. People who really don't, for years they can't get their pension and work. Somebody must advocate for this. So, it's a commitment to do it. Because what you need to do for journalism is just that you are doing it at a local level. And you can choose any platform to do it. Radio, television, television. And I don't know whether have you have community radio? Oh, fantastic. That's one of the most brilliant expression of it. So you can define the community either in geographical terms or institutional terms or and so a community of private, a community of, So this is a university, it's a community, and then you can really do very good journalism. Journalism doesn't need to abuse leaders to be journalism. Doesn't have to abuse. Just really speak. Become the voice of people to make change that is positive. Make it possible. And then, so when, for me, and sorry, when I say the lady, I don't mean to offend you because I don't know the name. So the lady asked the other question, what are those lessons that we got and what we, for me, what is most tragic about the last presidential election is that so many things were gained that we turn it into a lot of loss of money. For instance, is the one election that has the highest number of youth registration. How can that not mean something? That's a big deal. We can build serious value because that future is ready for young people. Then that means we have to create, even if we agree that we lost the election, we have to build on that value of the future of these people who are coming to inherit the country, which will be years. And so that's one lost opportunity. The second is that whatever you say, the electoral laws have been the best in the history of the country coming to that election. That must make for something. We can't throw the baby and the bathtub away because we don't have an election. So I think that's one of the kinds of things that the inability to turn all those lost opportunities to value for me is the most, it's not tragic, but it's the most painful part of that whole. And whether the country has become more united after that, we can see that it's not, right? So, Nigeria's problem will not be solved in one electoral cycle, not two. Probably not. Everybody who is serious about it, if we know how terrible things are in this country, So whether there is an elite consensus among the political class to be able to come, whichever party is coming, understand that you have to fix the state, you have to fix university, you have to fix schools, you have to fix health, you have to fix roads, you have to fix infrastructure, we then have to get the economy running. If anybody tells you he's going to do this in 4 years, it's a bloody lie. It's impossible. So, but you have to create a trajectory that makes this possible on and that hold people accountable that they get this done in a way, which is all. So that's the way I will. You ask the question, how I've remained faithful. I don't know whether I'll be faithful. I think there are people in government who think that I'm the most worthless person to no, but it's just that, you have to stand for something, you have to stand for some values, and also, you just have to use your brain. You have to be part of innovation. Let me tell you something, media is failing. But if I tell you that the richest company in Africa today is a media company, it's not a bank, it's not a telecommunication company, all the things that we love to do. The highest quoted company on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange today is a media company. So all I'm saying is that if we put our thinking back, we set up an organization in 2011. I don't want to self-aggrandize, I'm just telling you some facts, just to see that some things are possible. At the time that media is failing, but today we're in 13 African countries. I don't know whether we're in high state, but I know that if you're a youth partner in my organization, you have to take the 100,000. Oh, yes. Yeah, there's no question. Even intern, if you go as a student intern to work with us, you have to take 50K. We're not stealing money, we're not asking a politician. You have to use your brain to innovate. The opportunities are there. I might be forced to make disclosure under pressure. So far, no, nobody else. We do respect to our servicemen here, but I was the last person who tried to do that, and I think he was not successful. So, we don't know how tomorrow will be, I don't I'm not a lazy guy. Perhaps if you put a gun in my head, perhaps I will melt, but so far I've not been. So thank you very much.
And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. very dynamic field. It's changing constantly, and we have pointed to that. Unless I forget, there was one other point that which I think I have to talk about so that the management of this university can help us. You have an institute. Well, you have an institute that you're leading, and you said other universities are partnering with you. I don't have the power to say we partner with you. But we are interested as a department. And I believe that my customers will help us. So we work with you closely. You talked about curriculum and all that. Yes, we started developing that, especially in the area of media literacy. People don't know that media literacy is not just about the journalist. It's about you. If you don't know how to make good use of media content, you are media illiterate. So, it's a class that we have as our and we teach that to educate people on how to make good use of media. Yeah, the local media, we call them community media. They're not the place in journalism practice everywhere in the world, including Nigeria. A lot of things are happening at the grassroots level, but it's recorded. We only read about Abuja, we read about Lagos. And this is where the issue of local media must be taken seriously. And I'm happy to tell you, sir, that there's, a lot happening in that direction now. I'm from Esako, Edo State. And I was surprised to see on social media some youths, casting youths in our local language. They don't have their own platform. And this is where I want my students to pay attention. You can't stop the journalism and go home and be looking for a job. You will carry your certificate on your bed every day. So the digital media is offering you an opportunity to report what's happening at the grassroots. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I'm not going to say that as I'm standing here, I can tell you the latest news in this local government area where I come from. And I will not. What makes that possible? That is the community media. Now leveraging all digital media. So I want you, my students, to be inspired by the lesson of this.
cool with it. So I'm free to call you that. Thank you, sir. Distinguished guests, very respected dignitaries here, our students, committee of course, provost deans, our heads of department, non-teaching staff, senior and junior, everyone here, and then our dear students. It's always a pleasure to do what I'm doing on behalf of the university, to express appreciation to all of you. Every time we call, you are here. So I'd like to start, as always, by thanking God for making this day a reality. It's been a very cool day. Typically, Lokoja is hot. But in the past few weeks, we've had the grace of very cool weather. So we thank God for making this lecture a success, yet another success. We want to thank you, our lecturer, most sincerely, for opening our eyes to a lot of things. I learned a few new phrases. Mass self-communication. Maybe NUC will start to think about that and see how that comes in, given the technology and the digital world we're in. So thank you for that. You said something about media capture. For me, that's a big problem. Yes, sir. So thank you for enlightening us. And you talked about transforming passive subjects into active citizens that can participate fully in democracy. I think these are all very valuable lessons for all of us, students and everyone present here. So let me thank you everyone for being a beautiful, wonderful audience. Thank our Vice Chancellor. He's managed to attract big names to our university. But every time this happens, there's improved visibility for you. Can imagine the social media reporting Dapo Olorunyomi in the social media. And so we have lots of hits that will count for our ranking, whether you like it or not. So that's part of what we get when we do all of these public lectures. So we're very grateful. We'd like to thank everyone. We have Dapo Olorunyomi, public servants. Thank you. We are all public servants. Thank you so much. We have DSC Basil David representing NSDC State Commandant, Nathaniel Adama representing DSS Kogi State, Lieutenant FC Mofia representing Commandant 12 Brigade. Thank you always. I think you were here yesterday. We have GB Aquila representing Commandant NNS Lugard. And last, certainly not the least, is Isaiah Issa Halima Chadia NSCDC. So we thank you everyone.